Standing in the marble lobby of the unemployment office at 8:30 a.m., watching my husband Tanner's silver sedan disappear around the corner after he'd dropped me off like discarded baggage, I felt something ignite inside my chest that had nothing to do with heartbreak and everything to do with fury. Not the helpless rage I'd felt 2 hours earlier when I discovered his betrayal, but the cold, calculating anger of someone who had just realized they'd been playing a game where only one person knew the rules. By the time I walked out of that building 4 hours later, the unemployment counselor's jaw was still on the floor. Tanner was frantically calling me from 3 different numbers, and I had just turned the worst day of my supposed professional life into the launching pad for the most spectacular comeback he never saw coming. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning had started exactly as Tanner had orchestrated it. I sat in the passenger seat of his car, clutching the folder containing my severance paperwork from Morrison & Associates marketing firm, feeling like a complete failure at 32 years old. 3 months earlier, I'd been let go from my position as senior digital marketing strategist due to what they called company restructuring. What they didn't mention was that my innovative social media campaigns had been quietly reassigned to other team members, while I was systematically excluded from client meetings I had originally secured. "You'll be fine, Belle," Tanner said, his voice carrying that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate over the past few months. "The unemployment office will help you figure out your next steps. Maybe this is a sign that you should consider something more stable." Stable. The word hit like a slap. For 6 years of marriage, I had supported his dreams of becoming a real estate mogul, using my marketing expertise to design his websites, create his promotional materials, and even ghostwrite his blog posts about market trends. I had celebrated every one of his property sales while downplaying my own achievements in digital marketing, an industry that was exploding with opportunities for someone with my skills. "I don't need them to figure out my next steps," I replied, staring out the window at the gray February morning in downtown Portland. "I just need to file for benefits until I can find something that matches my experience level." Tanner's fingers drummed against the steering wheel in that rhythm he used when he was mentally calculating something. "Well, don't be too picky about matching your experience. Sometimes you have to take a step back to move forward. Maybe something part-time would be good for you. Less stress. Part-time. Less stress." As if my career had been a cute hobby that was becoming inconvenient now that it wasn't generating income. I looked at my husband's profile as he navigated through downtown traffic, noting the expensive haircut he'd gotten last week and the designer watch he'd bought himself for closing his latest deal. Everything about Tanner's appearance screamed success, from his tailored navy suit to his Italian leather shoes. Meanwhile, I was wearing my best interview outfit, a black pantsuit I'd bought 3 years ago, and carrying a folder full of paperwork that documented my professional humiliation. The Oregon Employment Department building rose ahead of us, an imposing concrete structure that somehow managed to look both bureaucratic and judgmental. I had driven past this building hundreds of times during my commute to Morrison & Associates, never imagining I'd be walking through its doors as a client rather than a successful marketing professional driving to her corner office. "Do you want me to come in with you?" Tanner asked as he pulled up to the curb, but his tone suggested this was a courtesy question rather than a genuine offer. "No, I can handle it," I said, gathering my purse and folder. The last thing I needed was my husband, witnessing whatever bureaucratic humiliation awaited me inside. Good. I've got showings all morning anyway. The Riverside property and that new listing on Elm Street. Big commission potential on both. He was already checking his phone, probably reviewing his calendar or texting with clients. "Call me when you're done and I'll pick you up." I paused with my hand on the door handle. "Actually, don't worry about it. I'll take the bus home. You focus on your showings. You sure? It's supposed to rain later." I'm sure. I stepped out of the car, closing the door with more force than necessary. Through the passenger window, I watched Tanner's face brighten with relief. He was already mentally moving on to his successful day while I dealt with the administrative aftermath of my professional failure. As his car pulled away from the curb, I stood on the sidewalk feeling more alone than I had since my parents died in a car accident 5 years earlier. Tanner had been my rock during that devastation, helping me navigate funeral arrangements and legal paperwork while I was paralyzed by grief. He had proposed 6 months later, promising that we would build a life together where we supported each other's dreams unconditionally. Standing outside the unemployment office, clutching paperwork that documented how spectacularly my career had crashed, I wondered when our mutual support had become so one-sided. The building's interior was exactly what I'd expected. Fluorescent lighting, beige walls, and rows of plastic chairs filled with people who looked as defeated as I felt. The reception area buzzed with quiet conversations and the clicking of keyboards from behind glass partition windows. Signs directed visitors to different areas: initial claims, job search resources, re-employment services. I approached the reception desk where a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair looked up from her computer screen. "Good morning. I'm here to file for unemployment benefits," I said, trying to keep my voice steady and professional. "First time filing?" she asked, and when I nodded, she handed me a clipboard with forms attached. "Fill these out completely and someone will call you when it's your turn. The wait time is usually about an hour." An hour. I found a seat in the back corner of the waiting area, as far from the main traffic flow as possible, and began working. Through the paperwork. Name, address, previous employer, reason for separation, last day of work. Each line was a small humiliation, reducing my marketing career to bureaucratic checkboxes and short-answer responses. The form asked for my previous salary, and I hesitated before writing down the figure. $85,000 annually, plus bonuses for campaign performance. It had been good money, especially combined with Tanner's real estate income. We'd been able to afford our mortgage on the Craftsman House in Southeast Portland, take occasional vacations, and maintain a comfortable lifestyle without financial stress. Now I was applying for benefits that would cover maybe a third of my previous income, and only temporarily. As I completed the paperwork, I became aware of my phone buzzing repeatedly in my purse. Text messages from Tanner, probably checking on how the process was going or updating me about his showings. I ignored the notifications, focusing instead on accurately documenting my employment history and job search efforts. What I didn't know, as I sat in that uncomfortable plastic chair, filling out forms that reduced my professional identity to data points, was that in my purse, those ignored text messages contained information that would shatter every assumption I had about my marriage, my husband's success, and the real reason behind my sudden unemployment. By the time my name was called to meet with a counselor, I was about to discover that my career destruction hadn't been the result of corporate restructuring or market forces. It had been personally orchestrated by someone who was supposed to love me, for reasons that would prove he had never really known me at all. The counselor's reaction to what I was about to reveal would be nothing compared to Tanner's shock when he realized that abandoning me at the unemployment office had been the biggest strategic mistake of his life. The waiting room of the unemployment office felt like purgatory designed by government contractors. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made even the healthiest person look jaundiced. I settled into a molded plastic chair that had probably been installed during the Clinton administration and tried to focus on the forms spread across my lap. Around me, other people waited with the same resigned patience I'd seen in doctors' offices and DMV locations. A woman in her 50s sat 2 chairs away, methodically highlighting sections of a thick manual titled Oregon Job Search Resources. Across the room, a young man who couldn't have been older than 25 stared at his phone screen with the glazed expression of someone who had lost count of how many applications he'd submitted. This was supposed to be temporary. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. A brief administrative stop before I found my next marketing position and got back to building the career I'd worked so hard to establish. After 6 years at Morrison & Associates, I had developed expertise in digital marketing strategies that few people in Portland could match. My campaigns had increased client engagement by an average of 340% and generated millions in revenue for companies ranging from local restaurants to tech startups. But sitting in that unemployment office, surrounded by people who looked like they'd been searching for work for months, I felt the confidence I'd built over the past decade slowly deflating. My phone buzzed again. The fourth text message from Tanner in the past 30 minutes. I pulled it out, expecting another update about his real estate showings or a reminder to call him when I finished. Instead, I found something that made my stomach clench with unease. Hope you're getting good advice in there. Remember what we talked about regarding your next career move. Sometimes stepping back is the best way forward. Love you. We hadn't talked about my next career move. Not in any meaningful way. Tanner's advice over the past 3 months had been limited to suggesting I take my time, consider my options, and maybe explore something less demanding than digital marketing. As if my profession was some high-stress emergency room job rather than the creative, strategic work I genuinely loved. I scrolled up to read his earlier messages, looking for context I might have missed. Showing went great. Client loved the Riverside property. Might have another big commission by tonight. BTW talked to Dennis about that conversation we had. He's excited about the possibilities. Everything is falling into place perfectly. Call me later. Dennis. I stared at the name, trying to place it. Tanner had mentioned a Dennis several times over the past few weeks, always in the context of business opportunities and potential collaborations. But I'd never met this Dennis, and Tanner had been vague about exactly what kind of business they were discussing. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how many conversations Tanner had been having lately that didn't include me. Late night. Phone calls he took in his home office with the door closed. Breakfast meetings with potential partners whose names I never quite caught. Text messages he responded to with unusual urgency, then deflected when I asked about them. For 6 years of marriage, we had shared everything. I knew the names of his difficult clients, celebrated his successful closings, and helped him strategize approaches to challenging negotiations. When he was struggling to break into Portland's competitive real estate market, I had used my marketing skills to build his entire professional brand from scratch. I had designed his website, created his social media presence, and even helped him identify target neighborhoods where his personality and sales approach would be most effective. Some of his biggest early successes had come from leads generated through digital marketing campaigns I had created and managed for free. But lately, Tanner's business had become mysteriously compartmentalized. He shared his successes, but none of the details about how he was achieving them. He celebrated his commissions but never mentioned the clients or properties involved. And increasingly, he seemed to have less interest in hearing about my own professional challenges or job search efforts. Belle Thompson? A voice called from the reception area. I looked up to see a woman in her 40s holding a clipboard, scanning the waiting room. She had short auburn hair and wore a navy blazer that managed to look both professional and approachable. "That's me," I said, gathering my paperwork and following her toward a corridor lined with small offices. "I'm Donna Williams, one of the career counselors here," she said as we walked. "I'll be helping you navigate the unemployment process and discuss your reemployment options." Her office was small but organized, with motivational posters that actually seemed genuine rather than condescending. A plant on the windowsill suggested someone who took time to nurture growth, and the neat stacks of career resources on her desk indicated thorough preparation for each client meeting. "Please, have a seat," Donna said, settling behind her desk and opening a folder. "I've reviewed your initial paperwork, and I have to say, your background is impressive. Senior digital marketing strategist at Morrison & Associates, salary in the mid-80s, performance bonuses for campaign results. That's not the kind of position most people lose due to simple restructuring." I felt a flush of validation. Finally, someone who understood that my unemployment wasn't a reflection of inadequate skills or poor performance. It caught me off guard. "Too," I admitted. "I thought I was doing excellent work. My campaigns were consistently exceeding client expectations." Donna nodded, making notes in my file. "In my experience, when highly skilled professionals in growing industries suddenly find themselves unemployed due to vague restructuring, there's usually more to the story. Have you had any informal conversations with former colleagues about what really happened?" The question hit me like a cold splash of water. I hadn't reached out to anyone from Morrison & Associates since my termination. I'd been too embarrassed, too focused on moving forward rather than looking back. But Donna was right. In a field as collaborative as digital marketing, my sudden disappearance from the company should have generated some curiosity among people I'd worked with for years. "I haven't," I said slowly. "I guess I was trying to avoid dwelling on what happened." "That's understandable. But information is power in situations like this. Sometimes there are factors affecting your termination that could impact your eligibility for benefits, or even create grounds for legal action." She handed me a sheet of paper with contact information for employment attorneys and wrongful termination resources. "I'm not saying that's necessarily the case here, but it's worth investigating, especially given your performance record and the vague reasons provided for your termination." As I folded the paper and tucked it into my purse, my phone buzzed with another text from Tanner. This time, I looked at it immediately. "Dennis confirmed our lunch meeting for tomorrow. Everything we discussed is moving forward. You focus on your thing, I'll handle mine." Something about the phrasing bothered me. Our thing and my thing, as if our professional lives were completely separate enterprises rather than the partnership they'd been for 6 years. And there was something almost secretive about the way he referred to his meeting with Dennis, like he was deliberately avoiding details. "Mrs. Thompson?" Donna's voice brought my attention back to the conversation. "Is everything all right?" I looked, up from my phone, suddenly aware that I'd been frowning at the screen for longer than was polite. "I'm sorry. Just some family logistics," I said. But even as I spoke, I realized that wasn't entirely true. Tanner's messages didn't feel like family logistics. They felt like communications from someone who was operating independently, making decisions that would affect both of us without including me in the process. For the first time since my termination, I wondered if there were connections I hadn't considered, patterns I hadn't recognized, information I didn't have about my own life. "Actually," I said to Donna, setting my phone down on her desk, "there might be something I need to investigate. Can I ask you a hypothetical question?" Donna leaned back, in her chair, clearly accustomed to clients who needed to process complex situations. "Of course. If someone's spouse had professional connections that could potentially influence their employment status, would that be something worth looking into?" The question hung in the air between us. I hadn't intended to voice my suspicions, but something about Donna's direct approach and professional expertise made me feel safe to explore possibilities I'd been afraid to consider. "That's not as hypothetical as it sounds, is it?" Donna said, gently. "And yes, it would absolutely be worth investigating, especially if there were potential conflicts of interest or improper influences involved." I picked up my phone and scrolled through Tanner's messages again, this time with the analytical mindset I used when reviewing marketing campaign data. The patterns were subtle but consistent. References to meetings and conversations I wasn't included in. Mentions of business opportunities that seemed to coincide with changes in my own professional situation, and an increasing emphasis on my career being separate from his, despite 6 years of collaborative partnership. "Donna, When you review unemployment cases, do you ever see situations where someone's termination was orchestrated by outside parties? Her expression grew more serious. It's not common, but it happens. Usually involves some form of professional sabotage or conflict of interest. What makes you ask? I took a deep breath, realizing I was about to voice suspicions that could fundamentally change my understanding of my marriage and my career. My husband is a real estate agent. Over the past 3 months, he's been having meetings with someone named Dennis about business opportunities. During that same time period, my work situation at Morrison & Associates became increasingly difficult. I was excluded from meetings. My projects were reassigned, and eventually I was terminated for vague restructuring reasons. Donna made notes as I spoke, her expression growing more focused. And you think there might be a connection? I don't know, but my husband has been unusually secretive about his business dealings lately, and he seems almost relieved that I'm unemployed, like it solves some problem I didn't know existed. My phone buzzed with another message from Tanner. This time, I read it aloud to Donna. Dennis confirmed our lunch meeting for tomorrow. Everything we discussed is moving forward. You focus on your thing, I'll handle mine. Donna raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting way for a spouse to refer to major life decisions. Your thing and my thing suggests separate agendas rather than shared goals. She turned to her computer and began typing. Mrs. Thompson, I want to show you something. Oregon has public records for business licensing, property transactions, and professional partnerships. If your husband has been pursuing business opportunities that might create conflicts with your employment, there might be documentation. I watched as she navigated through various database screens, entering search terms I couldn't quite see from my angle. What's your husband's full name and business license information? Tanner James Thompson. He works with Cascade Realty, but I think he might be pursuing independent opportunities. Donna typed for several minutes, then paused at something on her screen. Her expression shifted from professional curiosity to genuine concern. Belle, I think you need to see this. She turned the monitor toward me, revealing a business registration document dated 6 weeks ago. Thompson & Associates Marketing Consultancy had been registered as a new business entity, with Tanner Thompson listed as the primary partner and Dennis Morrison as the secondary partner. Dennis Morrison. The same Morrison from Morrison & Associates, my former employer. I stared at the screen, feeling my understanding of the past 3 months reorganize itself into a completely different pattern. Dennis Morrison is my former boss's son, I said slowly. He's been working to take over more responsibility in his father's company. And now he's in business with your husband, Donna said quietly. A marketing consultancy that was registered shortly before your termination from a marketing firm. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Tanner hadn't just been having secret business meetings. He had been planning to start a marketing company using the contacts and industry knowledge I had developed over 6 years of marriage. Dennis Morrison had provided inside access to eliminate me as competition while positioning Tanner to inherit my professional relationships and client base. My phone rang. Tanner's name appeared on the screen, and for the first time in months, I felt no obligation to answer immediately. Don't answer that yet, Donna said. Let's gather more information first. She continued searching through public records while I sat in stunned silence, processing the betrayal. Every conversation about my career being too stressful, every suggestion that I consider something more stable, every instance of Tanner discouraging me from networking or pursuing new opportunities, it had all been strategic manipulation, designed to isolate me professionally while he built a competing business. Here, Donna said, pointing to another document on her screen. Thompson & Associates filed for a significant business loan 3 weeks ago. The application lists projected revenue from established client relationships in digital marketing sector and mentions insider knowledge of competitor strategies and weaknesses. Competitor strategies and weaknesses. They were referring to me and my work as competitive intelligence to be exploited. Belle, this goes beyond professional sabotage. This is fraud and possibly theft of intellectual property. If your husband used information about your clients, campaigns, or strategies to build his competing business, there could be serious legal implications. My phone buzzed with a text message from Tanner. Everything okay? You've been quiet. Dennis is excited to meet you soon. I think you'll really like the opportunities he has in mind. I showed the message to Donna, who shook her head in amazement. He's planning to bring you into the business he built by destroying your career. The audacity is almost impressive. What do I do? I asked, feeling overwhelmed by the scope of the deception. Donna leaned forward, her expression combining professional expertise with genuine compassion. First, we document everything. Every text message, every business filing, every detail about your termination from Morrison & Associates. Second, you consult with an employment attorney about wrongful termination and potentially an intellectual property lawyer about theft of trade secrets. She paused, studying my face carefully. But most importantly, you decide whether you want to confront this head-on or gather more evidence first. Because once you reveal what you know, there's no going back to the way things were. I looked at my phone, where Tanner's messages continued to arrive with casual confidence. He had no idea that his wife was sitting in an unemployment office, uncovering the systematic destruction of her career that he had orchestrated. I want to gather more evidence, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. If Tanner thinks he can manipulate me this completely, he doesn't know me as well as he thinks he does. Donna smiled, and I caught a glimpse of the fierce intelligence that made her effective at helping people navigate difficult transitions. Then, let's make sure you have everything you need to take control of this situation. For the next hour, Donna and I worked like detectives assembling a case file. She printed out every business document we could find related to Thompson & Associates marketing consultancy, while I systematically screenshotted months of text messages, emails, and calendar entries that suddenly made sense in this new context. Look at this, I said, showing Donna a text exchange from 6 weeks ago. Tanner asked me to compile a list of all my professional contacts for our joint networking strategy. I thought he was trying to be supportive of my career. Donna shook her head as she read over my shoulder. He was harvesting your client database. That list probably became part of their business plan. The realization made my stomach turn. I had enthusiastically provided Tanner with detailed information about my most valuable professional relationships, including their budget ranges, campaign preferences, and upcoming project timelines. Information that Dennis Morrison could have used to position Thompson & Associates as the perfect alternative when my position at Morrison & Associates was eliminated. Belle, I need you to think carefully about your termination meeting, Donna said, pulling out a legal pad. Who was present? What specific reasons were given? Were there any unusual circumstances or timing? I closed my eyes, forcing myself to relive that humiliating Friday afternoon in December. It was Dennis Morrison and the HR director, Jennifer Walsh. They said the company was restructuring to focus on larger enterprise clients and that my position was being eliminated as part of cost-cutting measures. But your clients weren't enterprise level? Actually, they were. Most of my accounts were mid to large businesses with substantial marketing budgets. The reasoning never made sense, but I was so shocked that I didn't push for clarification. Donna made notes, then looked up with the expression that mixed professional concern with personal outrage. Was Dennis Morrison involved in the decision-making for your accounts before your termination? Not directly, but... I paused, remembering details I'd dismissed at the time. About 2 months before I was fired, Dennis started asking detailed questions about my campaign strategies during team meetings. He said he was trying to understand all aspects of the business to prepare for greater leadership responsibilities. And you shared your strategies? Of course. I thought he was trying to learn. I was mentoring him. The words tasted bitter as I spoke them. I even let him sit in on client calls to observe my approach. Donna set down her pen and looked at me directly. Belle, you weren't mentoring him. You were training your replacement. Dennis Morrison spent 2 months learning your methods, your client relationships, and your strategic approach. Then he eliminated your position and took your knowledge to start a competing business with your husband. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. Not only had Tanner systematically undermined my career, but I had unknowingly participated in my own professional destruction by sharing information with Dennis that he used against me. My phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize with a Portland area code. Should I answer it? I asked Donna. Yes, but put it on speaker. If this is related to your situation, I want to hear it. I accepted the call and immediately heard a familiar voice. Belle? This is Jenny Richardson from Morrison & Associates. I got your number from the company directory. I hope you don't mind me calling. Jenny had been my closest colleague at Morrison & Associates, someone I'd worked with on several successful campaigns. I hadn't spoken to her since my termination. Jenny, hi. Of course I don't mind. How are you? I'm okay, but I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Belle, there are some things happening here that I think you should know about. I looked at Donna, who nodded encouragingly. What kind of things? Well, after you left, Dennis Morrison took over all your accounts. But instead of managing them internally, he's been referring them to an outside consultancy, a company called Thompson & Associates. The clients are paying premium rates for services that sound exactly like the campaigns you used to create. My hands started shaking. How do you know this? Because I've been working with Dennis on the account transitions, and he's been very specific about maintaining the exact same strategies and approaches you developed. He even uses some of your presentation templates. Belle, I think someone is profiting from your work while cutting you out completely. Donna was writing furiously, documenting every detail of Jenny's revelations. There's more, Jenny continued. I overheard Dennis on a phone call yesterday. He was talking to someone about phase 2 of their plan and mentioned something about bringing you into their consultancy once your employment situation stabilized. He said it would look more legitimate if there was a waiting period. They want to hire me? It sounded like they want to offer you a junior position at the company they built using your work and connections. Belle, I think you've been manipulated. After I hung up, Donna and I sat in silence for several minutes. The evidence was overwhelming. Tanner and Dennis had orchestrated my termination, stolen my professional knowledge and client relationships, and were now planning to offer me a subordinate role in the business they'd built on the foundation of my destroyed career. What's my next step? I asked. Donna smiled, and I could see the strategic mind that made her effective at career counseling. Now, we turn this information into leverage. But first, you need to decide what outcome you want. Do you want your old job back? Financial compensation or something bigger? I thought about Tanner's patronizing comments about finding something more stable, his secret meetings, and his plan to offer me a junior position in my own stolen business. I want something bigger, I said. I want to build something they can't take away from me. Before we plan your next move, Donna said, pulling out a fresh legal pad, I need you to understand something important. You're not just a victim in this situation. You're someone with valuable skills, industry knowledge, and now crucial information about your competitors' strategies. That makes you incredibly powerful. The words hit me differently than any consolation I'd received over the past 3 months. Donna wasn't offering sympathy or encouragement. She was stating facts about my strategic position. What do you mean? I asked, though something inside me was already beginning to understand. Think about it. Tanner and Dennis believe they've successfully eliminated you as competition and stolen your business foundation. But they don't know that you've discovered their partnership. They have no idea you're aware of how they're using your work or that you've documented their methods. Donna stood up and began pacing behind her desk, clearly energized by the strategic possibilities. Right now, they think you're sitting at home feeling defeated, maybe browsing job boards or updating your resume. They expect you to be grateful when they eventually offer you a position at Thompson & Associates. They have no idea you're sitting in an unemployment office planning their professional downfall. I felt something shift inside my chest. Not the crushing weight of betrayal I'd been carrying, but something lighter and infinitely more dangerous. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Donna, I need to make some phone calls. To attorneys? To clients. Her eyebrows rose. That's either brilliant or incredibly risky. What's your plan? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts, seeing hundreds of professional relationships I'd built over 6 years in digital marketing. Account managers, creative directors, small business owners, startup founders, people who had worked with me directly and trusted my expertise. Tanner and Dennis are assuming that my client relationships belong to Morrison & Associates, and that those clients will automatically follow their recommendations to use Thompson & Associates. But most of my clients worked with me personally. They hired Morrison & Associates because they wanted to work with Belle Thompson. And if Belle Thompson was available independently, then Thompson & Associates becomes a very expensive middleman offering inferior service. Donna sat back down, her expression shifting from counselor to co-conspirator. You're talking about starting your own consultancy. I'm talking about reclaiming what was always mine in the first place. I opened my laptop and began typing. Years of marketing experience flowing into a strategic plan that would have impressed my former colleagues at Morrison & Associates. Here's what Tanner and Dennis don't understand about the marketing industry, I said, turning the screen so Donna could see my notes. Clients pay premium rates for expertise and results, not for company names. Most of my clients chose Morrison and the Associates specifically because they wanted to work with me. But won't they be locked into contracts with Thompson & Associates? I smiled, feeling the first genuine confidence I'd experienced since my termination. That's where Dennis Morrison's inexperience works in my favor. Most of my former clients are on month-to-month arrangements with specific performance benchmarks. If Thompson & Associates can't deliver the same results I was producing, and they can't because they're using stolen strategies without understanding the underlying principles, those clients will be looking for alternatives. And you'll be available. Better than available. I'll be independent, affordable, and already familiar with their business needs. I began making a list of my most valuable professional contacts, prioritizing by relationship strength and contract flexibility. Within 20 minutes, I had identified 15 clients who could potentially become the foundation of my own consultancy. Belle, this is ambitious, but you need startup capital, business registration, legal protection. Actually, I interrupted, accessing my personal banking app on my phone. I have resources Tanner doesn't know about. For the past 3 years, I had been automatically depositing my performance bonuses into a separate savings account I'd opened to surprise Tanner with a down payment on the vacation property he'd been wanting. The account now contained nearly $40,000, more than enough to launch an independent consultancy. He doesn't know about this account? I wanted it to be a surprise. Instead, it's going to be his worst nightmare. Donna was taking notes as I spoke, and I could see her professional excitement building. You realize what you're proposing is essentially economic warfare against your husband's business? I'm proposing to compete fairly in a market where I have legitimate expertise and existing relationships. If that destroys Thompson & Associates, it's because they built their business on theft rather than competence. My phone buzzed with another text from Tanner. Lunch with Dennis went great. We're ahead of schedule on everything. Can't wait to share the good news with you tonight. I showed the message to Donna, who shook her head in amazement. The overconfidence is almost unbelievable. It's about to become very expensive overconfidence. I spent the next hour with Donna, using her office computer and phone to begin the process of registering Bell Thompson Digital Marketing as a business entity. We researched business licensing requirements, insurance options, and legal structures that would protect my personal assets while maximizing operational flexibility. "There's one more thing," I said as we finished the preliminary paperwork. "I need to document everything Tanner and Dennis have done, not just for legal protection, but for competitive advantage. If I'm going to compete against Thompson and Associates, I need to understand exactly how they're positioning themselves to my former clients." "Industrial espionage?" "Market research," I corrected. "Everything they're doing is visible through public business records, client testimonials, and marketing materials. I just need to be systematic about gathering intelligence." Donna leaned back in her chair, studying my face with obvious admiration. "3 hours ago, you walked in here feeling like a failure. Now you're planning to launch a business that could destroy your husband's company and reclaim your professional identity. 3 hours ago, I thought I was a victim of corporate restructuring. Now I know I'm the target of systematic betrayal by people who underestimated my capabilities." I gathered my paperwork and stood up, feeling more energized than I had in months. "Donna, thank you for everything. You've helped me understand that. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the best opportunity you've ever had. What's your next step?" I checked my phone, noting that Tanner expected to pick me up in 2 hours. "I'm going home to have dinner with my husband and listen to him tell me about his exciting new business opportunity. And tomorrow, I'm going to start dismantling everything he built on the foundation of my destroyed career." The bus ride home gave me 45 minutes to organize my thoughts and plan my strategy. By the time I reached my neighborhood, I had a timeline for launching Bell Thompson Digital Marketing and a cover story that would allow me to gather intelligence while Tanner remained oblivious. I had 2 hours before Tanner returned, and I intended to use every minute strategically. First, I transferred my secret savings account to a new business account over the phone. $43,000 became the startup capital for Bell Thompson Digital Marketing, completely outside any joint arrangements Tanner could access. Next, I registered my business with Oregon's Secretary of State online. Within 30 minutes, Bell Thompson Digital Marketing was officially licensed. I chose a structure protecting my personal assets while allowing maximum flexibility. While the registration processed, I began strategic calls to former clients. "Claire, this is Bell Thompson. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Claire Santos from Northwest Tech Solutions sounded genuinely pleased to hear from me. "Bell, I was just thinking about you. How are you handling everything?" "I'm doing well, actually. The transition has given me time to consider exciting opportunities. Can I ask how things are going with your new account management?" There was a pause. "Honestly, it's been challenging. Dennis is knowledgeable, but the campaigns don't have the same personal touch we got working with you directly." "What do you mean?" "He's using similar strategies to what you developed, but execution feels different, less intuitive, and costs have increased significantly." "What kind of increases?" "About 40% higher than Morrison and Associates." Dennis explained that independent rates are naturally higher, but we're not seeing 40% better results. Perfect. Dennis was gouging my former clients while delivering substandard work. "Claire, if there were alternative options for digital marketing, perhaps more personalized service at competitive rates, would that interest Northwest Tech?" "Absolutely. Our contract with Thompson and Associates is month to month, and we've been discussing other options." "Why do you ask?" "Just exploring possibilities. I'll be in touch soon." Similar calls to 3 other former clients revealed the same pattern. Thompson and Associates was charging premium rates while delivering generic implementations of strategies I had developed. By evening, I had documented their pricing structure, identified operational weaknesses, and confirmed that major clients were dissatisfied. When Tanner arrived home, I was ready. "How was your day?" he asked, loosening his tie with satisfaction. "Productive. The unemployment office was helpful, and I learned about my options." "Good. I have exciting news about the business opportunity with Dennis. We might be able to offer you something sooner than anticipated. That sounds wonderful. Tell me everything. Over dinner, Tanner described Thompson and Associates as if it were his innovation rather than theft. He explained their revolutionary approach and personalized strategies for clients who'd been underserved by traditional agencies. The best part is we're already profitable. Dennis brought established clients who pay premium rates for our expertise. My former clients, my strategies, the relationships I'd spent years developing. And you think there might be an opportunity for me? Definitely. Dennis was impressed by your background. We're thinking you could start as a junior strategist and work your way up. Junior strategist, learning my own methods. I smiled across our dinner table, thinking about how his stable business was about to face competition from someone who understood his clients better than he ever would. I can't wait to learn more. The next morning, Tanner vibrated with excitement as he prepared for work. He hummed while shaving and kept glancing at me with the satisfied expression of someone orchestrating the perfect surprise. I have a meeting with Dennis this afternoon, he said, adjusting his tie. We're finalizing business expansion details. I think you're really going to love what we've put together. I'm sure I will, I replied, mentally reviewing my agenda. Actually, Dennis suggested you stop by the office this afternoon. Nothing formal, just a chance to see the workspace and get a feel for company culture. He wants to meet me today? If you're available. Dennis is excited about working with you. He said he's been impressed by your portfolio. My portfolio. Showcasing campaigns Dennis had observed me develop before stealing them. What time should I be there? Around 3? I'll text the address. Tanner kissed my cheek. This is going to be perfect, Belle. After he left, I spent 2 hours preparing like a general planning reconnaissance. I researched Thompson and Associates building, mapped the area, and created questions that would seem enthusiastic while gathering competitive intelligence. I also made strategic calls to former clients, positioning conversations as casual check-ins, rather than business development. Hi, Clark. It's Belle Thompson. Clark Williams from Pacific Northwest Digital Solutions sounded pleased. Belle, I was thinking about you. How are you handling the transition? I'm exploring interesting opportunities. How are things with Thompson and Associates? Notable pause. Honestly, challenging. They're knowledgeable, but the approach feels different from what we were used to with you. Different how? More generic, less tailored to our industry needs. And the costs? He trailed off diplomatically. I understand. If you ever need informal consultation, please don't hesitate to reach out. Actually, would you be available for coffee this week? We're reviewing our marketing strategy and could use outside perspective. Perfect. I'd be happy to. By 2:55 p.m., I arrived at Thompson and Associates' downtown office building. The 15th. Floor office screamed expensive overhead costs. Dennis Morrison looked exactly as expected. Confident, well-dressed, radiating calculated charm. His office featured modern furniture, industry awards, and framed testimonials I recognized as quotes from my former clients praising work I had performed. Belle, such a pleasure to finally meet you properly. Tanner has told me so much about your expertise. Thank you for taking time to meet with me, Dennis. Please, have a seat. I want to start by saying how impressed I've been with your background. Your portfolio demonstrates exactly the strategic thinking we value at Thompson and Associates. I smiled politely while noting the irony of Dennis praising my work after stealing it. I appreciate that. Can you tell me about the company's approach to client relationships? Absolutely. We believe in personalized service, understanding each client's unique needs, and developing customized strategies that deliver measurable results. He was describing my methodology word for word, including phrases from my client presentations. That sounds similar to my philosophy. How do you ensure consistency across different account managers? That's one of our key advantages. we've developed proprietary frameworks and proven methodologies ensuring every client receives the same high-level strategic thinking. Proprietary frameworks. He was discussing templates and strategies I had created, now repackaged as Thompson & Associates intellectual property. The meeting continued with Dennis unknowingly revealing operational details while I maintained perfect composure, gathering intelligence about their methods, pricing, and weaknesses. Walking out of Thompson & Associates, I felt intoxicating clarity. Dennis had spent 45 minutes unknowingly providing complete competitive analysis while offering me a junior position implementing strategies I'd created. My phone buzzed with Tanner's text. "How did it go?" "Dennis said you seemed really interested." "Very promising," I replied. "I can see why you're excited about working with him." "True, though not for reasons Tanner imagined." I had 30 minutes before my scheduled coffee with Clark Williams. Sitting in a downtown cafe, I opened my laptop and began drafting Bell Thompson Digital Marketing's foundation document. Using intelligence from Dennis and former clients, I created service offerings addressing every Thompson & Associates weakness, while leveraging my superior client understanding. Where Thompson & Associates charged 40% markup for generic implementations, Bell Thompson Digital Marketing would offer personalized strategies at 20% below previous agency rates. "Bell!" Clark appeared exactly on time, looking relieved. "Thank you for making time." "Of course. It's always good to see you, Clark." He sat with the expression of someone wrestling with difficult decisions. "I'll be direct. Pacific Northwest. Digital is unhappy with our current marketing arrangement. Service quality has declined significantly since you left Morrison & Associates." "I'm sorry to hear that. What's been problematic?" "Thompson & Associates uses strategies similar to what you developed, but execution lacks nuance that made your campaigns effective. Our engagement rates dropped 15% in 2 months." I made notes while Clark continued. "More concerning, they don't understand our industry dynamics. Yesterday, Dennis suggested a campaign perfect for B2C retail, but completely wrong for our B2B software model. That sounds like a mismatch." "Bell, I'm asking directly. Would you be interested in consulting for Pacific Northwest Digital independently? The moment when Bell Thompson Digital Marketing would become real business, or remain theoretical response to Betrayal." "What arrangement did you have in mind?" "Initially, project-based contract to redesign our Q2 strategy. If successful, we'd discuss ongoing consulting or exclusive arrangements. What would timeline and budget look like?" Clark showed me numbers that made me blink twice. "We're paying Thompson & Associates $12,000 monthly. For genuinely personalized service from someone understanding our business model, we'd pay $15,000. $15,000 monthly. More than quarterly bonuses at Morrison & Associates." "That's very generous. It's competitive compensation for expertise delivering results." "Bell, your campaigns increased our lead generation over 300%. That performance justifies premium rates." After Clark left, I sat processing what happened. In 24 hours, I'd discovered Tanner's betrayal, registered my business, gathered competitive intelligence, and secured a foundational client contract worth $180,000 annually. My phone rang with Jenny Richardson from Morrison & Associates. "Bell, Dennis Morrison just sent an internal memo announcing Thompson & Associates is expanding and seeking additional strategists. He specifically mentioned recruiting experienced professionals understanding proven methodologies." "Interesting. Timing. He's been asking about your contact information and whether anyone knows if you're job searching. I think they're planning an offer soon." "Perfect. The faster Thompson & Associates moved, the more desperate they'd seem when I declined and launched competing business. By evening, I had preliminary agreements with 3 former clients worth over $400,000 annually. Tanner waited, with champagne and takeout. "I thought we should celebrate. Dennis was incredibly impressed. He said you're exactly what Thompson & Associates needs for their next growth phase." I'm excited about the possibilities, I said truthfully, raising my glass, knowing tomorrow I'd begin dismantling everything Dennis thought he'd built. The next morning, I sent Clark Williams a detailed proposal that was essentially a declaration of war disguised as professional consulting. I included competitive analysis showing Thompson & Associates' flawed approach for B2B software companies, timelines delivering faster results than Dennis could promise, and pricing both competitive and profitable. Most importantly, I demonstrated specific industry knowledge no other consultant could match. "Big plans today?" Tanner asked, reviewing his calendar. "Just following up on opportunities," I said truthfully. Yesterday's meeting really clarified my options. "Great. Dennis called last night saying how impressed he was with your strategic thinking. This could be exactly what you need to get back on track professionally." Get back on track. As if my career derailed due to inadequacies rather than his systematic sabotage. After Tanner left, I executed my business development strategy. I had identified 3 additional former clients likely dissatisfied with Thompson & Associates, intending to approach each before Dennis realized his client base was under attack. "Belle, I can't believe you're calling," Brianna Martinez from Cascade Creative Services exclaimed. "I was literally telling my team yesterday that we missed working with you. How are things with your new marketing arrangement?" "Honestly, frustrating. Thompson & Associates keeps proposing strategies that feel designed for completely different companies. Yesterday, they suggested a social media campaign perfect for tech startups, but meaningless for creative services firms." I made careful notes while Brianna described Thompson & Associates' failures. Dennis was using my strategies as templates, rather than understanding principles making them effective for specific industries. "Brianna, if alternatives were available for marketing consulting, perhaps more personalized service from someone, really understanding your business, would Cascade Creative consider that? Are you thinking about going independent?" "I'm exploring options. The transition has given me time to consider different client service approaches. Belle, if you start your own consultancy, Cascade Creative would absolutely be interested. Our contract with Thompson & Associates is month to month, and we've been discussing whether to continue." Similar conversations with 2 other former clients yielded identical patterns. Thompson & Associates was failing to deliver personalized service despite charging premium rates. By noon, I had preliminary interest from 4 companies representing over $500,000 in potential annual revenue. My phone rang with an unknown Portland number. "Belle Thompson? This is Evan Hayes from Northwest Business Journal. I'm developing a story on emerging marketing consultancies in the Portland area." Northwest Business Journal was the region's primary business publication, read by virtually everyone in Portland's professional community. "Your name came up in conversations as someone with insights about digital marketing trends. I'd be happy to share thoughts about industry trends." "Great. I'm particularly interested in how experienced strategists respond to changes in agency structures and client expectations." We arranged afternoon coffee. An interview would provide massive visibility for Belle Thompson digital marketing, while positioning me as industry expert rather than unemployed job seeker. At 2:30 p.m., I sat with Evan Hayes, a sharp journalist understanding Portland's marketing landscape. "Belle, there are rumors you're launching an independent consultancy competing directly with established agencies. Can you comment?" "I'm exploring opportunities to provide more personalized marketing services. The industry seems ready for consultants offering large agency expertise with independent contractor flexibility and attention." By evening, I had positioned Belle Thompson digital marketing as innovative market response rather than personal vendetta, secured multiple client commitments, and gained media attention. Tanner waited with takeout, eager to hear about my day. "How did everything go? Any job front progress?" "Very productive. I had interesting conversations about consulting opportunities." "That's great. Dennis is looking forward to bringing you onto the Thompson & Associates team." I smiled, thinking, about how his excitement was becoming very expensive. Friday brought an email accelerating my timeline considerably. Clark Williams had accepted my proposal and forwarded my information to 2 other tech companies seeking marketing consultants. "Belle, your proposal is exactly what we needed," Clark wrote. "When can we schedule kickoff? Also, I've shared your information with colleagues at Meridian Tech and Digital Northwest experiencing similar challenges with current arrangements. I was building momentum faster than anticipated, meaning I needed to formalize Bell Thompson Digital Marketing's launch before Thompson & Associates realized they were under systematic attack. At 9:30 a.m., Dennis Morrison called. "Bell, good morning. Tanner and I have been discussing your situation, and we'd like to accelerate our timeline." "Oh?" "Thompson & Associates is growing faster than anticipated. We're positioned to make you an offer immediately rather than waiting. Another month? Would you be available Monday morning to discuss compensation and start date?" "Perfect. Dennis was moving exactly when I needed him to. That sounds wonderful. What time?" 10 a.m.? "We can finalize details and hopefully have you start by week's end." "I'll be there." I spent the next hour crafting what would become Portland's most strategically timed business announcement. Bell Thompson Digital Marketing would officially launch Monday at 2 p.m., exactly 4 hours after declining Dennis's offer. I called Evan Hayes at Northwest Business Journal. "Evan, it's Bell Thompson. I have an update on that independent consultancy we discussed." "Perfect timing. I'm finalizing the article for next week's issue. Bell Thompson Digital Marketing officially launches Monday afternoon. I have signed contracts with 4 clients and preliminary agreements with 3 others representing over $600,000 in annual revenue. That's impressive for a startup. Any clients previously worked with Thompson & Associates? Several clients are making transitions from marketing arrangements that weren't meeting their needs. There's significant demand for more personalized consulting services. Would you be available for follow-up interview Monday afternoon? A launch announcement with that client base would make compelling business story." "Absolutely." 3 p.m.? Perfect. Next, I called Donna Williams. "Donna, it's Belle. I wanted to update you on developments. I've been wondering how your investigation turned out. Better than good. I'm launching my consultancy Monday, already with enough clients to generate more revenue than my previous salary." "Belle, that's incredible. What about your husband and Dennis Morrison?" "They're making me a job offer Monday morning. They have no idea I discovered their partnership or that I'm building competing business." Sunday evening, Tanner raised his wine glass and toast to tomorrow morning, and to the new beginning we've all been working toward. "To new beginnings," I agreed, thinking about Dennis Morrison's face when I declined his offer and announced I was launching competing business with contracts worth more than Thompson & Associates' entire client base. "Belle, I want you to know how proud I am of how you've handled everything. The unemployment situation, career transition, staying positive despite challenges. Tomorrow will be the start of something really special." "I think you're absolutely right. Tomorrow is going to be unforgettable." Tanner smiled across our dining table, completely unaware that in 12 hours, I would begin dismantling everything he thought he'd accomplished through months of systematic betrayal. Monday morning couldn't come soon enough. Monday morning arrived, with the crisp clarity of a perfect Portland spring day. While Tanner prepared for work with obvious excitement, checking his phone repeatedly for updates from Dennis, I made final preparations for what would become the most satisfying business meeting of my career. At 9 a.m., I sent carefully crafted emails to each of Thompson & Associates' current clients, time to arrive just as Dennis would be preparing for our 10 a.m. meeting. "Dear Clark," I wrote to Pacific Northwest Digital Solutions, "I wanted to personally inform you that Bell Thompson Digital Marketing will officially launch this afternoon. As discussed, I'm excited to begin our Q2 strategy development immediately. I've also arranged for Northwest Business Journal to cover the launch, and I believe you'll find the timing interesting given your current service provider situation." Similar messages went to Cascade Creative Services, Meridian Tech, Digital Northwest, and every other client I had identified through my reconnaissance. Each email included my new business contact information and a subtle reference to their current. Dissatisfaction with Thompson & Associates service quality. At 9:30 a.m., I called Donna Williams at the unemployment office. "Donna, it's Belle. I wanted you to know that everything comes together this morning. Are you ready for this?" "More than ready." Dennis Morrison thinks he's about to hire the junior strategist who will help implement the strategies he stole from me. Instead, he's about to discover that he's been competing against someone who was always several steps ahead of him. "What's your timeline?" I decline his job offer at 10 a.m. I announce Belle Thompson Digital Marketing's launch at 2 p.m. By 3 p.m., Thompson & Associates will have lost most of their client base to a competitor they created by underestimating my capabilities. Belle, I have to say, in 15 years of career counseling, I've never seen anyone turn a termination situation into this kind of strategic advantage. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best opportunity you'll ever have. 9:45 a.m. Tanner kissed me goodbye with unusual affection. "I'm so proud of you for staying positive through everything," he said. "Today is going to be the beginning of something really special." I couldn't agree more. Dennis texted that he's really excited about the offer they're putting together. "Belle, I think this could be even better than your old position at Morrison & Associates. I think you're absolutely right." As Tanner's car disappeared down our street, I gathered the portfolio of evidence I had assembled over the past week. Business registration documents for Thompson & Associates showing Dennis and Tanner's partnership, screenshots of their business, loan application mentioning competitor strategies and weaknesses, copies of client testimonials on their website that quoted praise for my work, email chains documenting how Dennis had harvested my client relationships and strategic knowledge. Everything Dennis Morrison thought he had hidden was organized in a folder that would demonstrate the systematic nature of their betrayal. At 9:55 a.m., I arrived at Thompson & Associates' downtown office building, taking the elevator to the 15th floor with the confident composure of someone who knew exactly how the next hour would unfold. The receptionist greeted me with the same professional smile as before, but this time I noticed details that revealed Thompson & Associates' operational weaknesses, expensive furniture that suggested high overhead costs, a designer coffee machine that indicated priorities focused on appearances rather than results, and most tellingly, a wall display of client testimonials that included quotes from companies that were about to cancel their contracts. "Mr. Morrison, we'll see you now," the receptionist said, leading me toward Dennis's office. Dennis Morrison stood up as I entered, radiating the confidence of someone who believed he was about to complete a successful manipulation. "Belle, thank you for coming in. I'm excited to share what we've put together for you. I'm very interested to hear what you have in mind. Please have a seat. Can I get you coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." Dennis settled behind his desk with obvious satisfaction, clearly enjoying what he thought would be a straightforward job offer to someone grateful for employment. "Belle, I want to start by saying that Thompson & Associates has been incredibly impressed with your background and expertise. Your portfolio demonstrates exactly the kind of strategic thinking that has made our consultancy successful." I nodded politely while noting that he was again praising my work to my face after stealing it for his business. "We're prepared to offer you a position as senior marketing strategist with a starting salary of $65,000 annually, plus performance bonuses based on client results. You'd be working directly with established accounts, implementing our proven methodologies, and contributing to the continued growth of our client base. $65,000 annually, $15,000 less than my previous salary at Morrison & Associates, to implement strategies I had created for clients I had originally developed. That sounds like an interesting opportunity, Dennis. Can you tell me more about these proven methodologies? Absolutely. We've developed proprietary frameworks for digital marketing strategy that ensure consistent results across different industries and client types. You'd be learning these systems and applying them to campaign development and client management. He was describing my own strategic approaches as if they were innovative developments of Thompson and Associates, rather than intellectual property he had stolen. And the established accounts I'd be working with? Several mid-sized businesses, primarily in tech and professional services, companies that value innovative approaches and personalized service. You'd be managing their campaigns using our proven strategies while building relationships that could lead to account expansion. My former clients, my proven strategies, the relationships I had spent years developing. Dennis, that all sounds very promising. But before I respond to your offer, I have some questions about Thompson and Associates' business model. Of course. What would you like to know? I opened my portfolio and removed the first document, Thompson and Associates business registration showing Dennis Morrison and Tanner Thompson as partners. I'm curious about your partnership structure. Specifically, how your business relationship with my husband factors into this job offer. The color drained from Dennis's face as he stared at the document. For the first time since I'd entered his office, he looked genuinely surprised. Belle, I can explain. I'm sure you can, I interrupted, removing the next set of documents. But first, let me share what I've discovered about Thompson and Associates' approach to acquiring client relationships and strategic knowledge. Dennis Morrison stared at the business registration document as if it were written in a foreign language. His confident expression cracked completely, revealing the panic of someone who had just realized that his carefully constructed deception was collapsing in real time. Belle, this isn't what it looks like, he began, but his voice carried none of the smooth confidence he'd displayed moments earlier. Really? I said, placing additional documents on his desk with methodical precision. Because it looks like you and my husband registered a marketing consultancy 6 weeks before my termination from Morrison and Associates. It looks like you applied for a business loan listing, competitor strategies and weaknesses as assets. And it looks like you've been using my client relationships and strategic knowledge to build a business while offering me a junior position to implement my own stolen work. Each document landed on Dennis's desk like a small explosion. Email chains showing his request for my client contact lists. Screenshots of Thompson and Associates' website featuring testimonials from my former clients. Copies of campaign strategies I had developed, now rebranded as proprietary Thompson and Associates methodologies. You don't understand the complexity of the business situation, Dennis said, attempting to regain control of the conversation. The partnership with Tanner was about expanding opportunities for everyone involved. Including me? Of course. We always planned to bring you into the business once the operational foundation was established. I laughed, a sound that apparently surprised Dennis more than my documentation had. Dennis, you orchestrated my termination to eliminate me as competition, harvested my client relationships through my husband, and built your business model on intellectual property you stole from me. Now, you're offering me $65,000 annually to implement strategies I created, for clients I developed, using methodologies I invented. The marketing industry is complicated. Sometimes business decisions require fraud, I interrupted, because that's what using marital assets to fund a business designed to compete against your spouse is called. That's what claiming someone else's work as proprietary methodology is called. That's what systematic sabotage of your colleague's career for personal profit is called. Dennis's office phone rang, and he glanced at the caller ID with obvious relief. I should take this, he said, reaching for the phone. Actually, you should let it go to voicemail, I suggested, because I suspect that's one of your clients calling to discuss the email they received this morning about alternative marketing consulting options. Dennis's hand froze above the phone as understanding dawned. What email? The email informing Thompson and Associates clients that Bell Thompson Digital Marketing officially launches this afternoon, offering personalized service at competitive rates from someone who already understands their business needs intimately. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. This time, the caller ID showed a different client name. Belle, you can't... I can't what? Compete fairly in a market where I have legitimate expertise? Offer superior service to clients who are dissatisfied with their current marketing arrangement? Start a business using my own strategic knowledge and professional relationships? Phone buzzed with a text message, and I glanced at it with obvious satisfaction. That's Clark Williams from Pacific Northwest Digital Solutions, I said, showing Dennis the message. He's confirming that they're terminating their contract with Thompson & Associates effective immediately and transitioning to Bell Thompson Digital Marketing for their Q2 strategy development. Dennis's face went white as he processed the implications. You planned this. The whole meeting, the job interview. You were gathering intelligence. I was being offered a position implementing my own stolen strategies for clients I had originally developed at a company built on the systematic destruction of my career. Yes, I planned my response very carefully. Another email notification appeared on my phone. Then another. Cascade Creative Services and Meridian Tech, I said, checking the messages. Also terminating their Thompson & Associates contracts. Dennis, I think your business model has some fundamental flaws. Belle, we can work this out. There's room in the market for multiple consultancies. We don't have to be competitors. You're right. We don't have to be competitors. I stood up and gathered my documents. Because after today, Thompson & Associates won't have enough clients left to constitute meaningful competition. What do you want? Financial compensation? Partnership terms? We can restructure everything. I don't want anything from Thompson & Associates, I said, reaching the office door. I want everything that was always mine in the first place. My professional reputation, my client relationships, my strategic knowledge, and the business success that comes from genuine expertise rather than elaborate theft. You're destroying everything we built. Dennis, you built your business by destroying my career. I'm simply reclaiming what was stolen from me, using the same business principles you applied: superior strategy, better client relationships, and competitive pricing. I paused at the door, looking back at Dennis Morrison sitting behind his expensive desk in his prestigious office, surrounded by testimonials praising work I had performed. The difference is that I'm competing with original ideas rather than stolen ones. I'm offering genuine expertise rather than repackaged templates. And I'm building relationships based on trust rather than systematic deception. Belle, wait! I have a 2 p.m. interview with Northwest Business Journal about the launch of Bell Thompson Digital Marketing, I said. I'm sure they'll be interested in hearing about the competitive dynamics in Portland's marketing industry. As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear Dennis's office phone ringing continuously. Thompson & Associates clients were calling to discuss their contract terminations, just as I had planned. By the time the elevator doors closed, my phone was buzzing with messages from potential new clients who had heard about Bell Thompson Digital Marketing through the business network communications I had coordinated that morning. The woman who had been abandoned at the unemployment office had just reclaimed her professional identity and destroyed the business built on her betrayal. But the morning wasn't over yet. I still had to tell my husband that his wife was now his most formidable competitor. Walking out of Thompson & Associates' office building, I felt my phone buzzing continuously with calls and messages. But the first call I answered was from Jenny Richardson at Morrison & Associates. Belle, what just happened? Dennis Morrison called my boss in a panic asking about industrial espionage and stolen client lists. He's claiming you somehow sabotaged Thompson & Associates. Industrial espionage? I laughed while walking toward my car. Jenny, I used my own professional relationships and strategic knowledge to start an independent consultancy. Everything I did was completely legal and ethical. That's what I told my boss when Dennis demanded that Morrison & Associates somehow intervene. Belle, Dennis sounded desperate. He said Thompson & Associates lost 3 major clients this morning. Actually, it's 4 clients now, I said, checking my latest email notification. Digital Northwest just confirmed they're terminating their contract. This is incredible. Dennis was so confident about his business model, and now he's practically begging Morrison and Associates to help him retain clients. Jenny, can I ask you something? Now that you've seen how this situation unfolded, what's your honest assessment of what Dennis did to my career? There was a pause before Jenny answered, and when she spoke, her voice carried a mixture of anger and admiration. Belle, I think Dennis Morrison deliberately sabotaged your position at Morrison and Associates to eliminate you as competition, while he built a business using your knowledge and client relationships. What you did today wasn't revenge, it was justice. I appreciate you saying that. There's something else. My boss wants to meet with you. Morrison and Associates is concerned about the ethical implications of Dennis's actions, and they're exploring whether there are grounds for legal action against Thompson and Associates for improper use of company resources and client relationships. That's interesting. Belle Morrison and Associates is also reconsidering their relationship with Dennis. If what you've documented is accurate, his actions while he was still employed here created significant liability issues for the company. My next call was from Clark Williams at Pacific Northwest Digital Solutions. Belle, I wanted to personally thank you for how professionally you handled this morning's transition. The contrast between your strategic approach and Thompson and Associates' panic response has been remarkable. I appreciate your confidence in Belle Thompson Digital Marketing, Clark. There's something else. 3 other tech companies have called me today asking about your consulting services. Apparently, word is spreading quickly through the business community about what happened to Thompson and Associates. What kind of word? That an experienced strategist launched an independent consultancy and immediately outcompeted an established agency by offering superior service at better rates. Belle, you're becoming something of a legend in Portland's marketing circles. That's very flattering. It's also very profitable. These companies are specifically asking for someone who can provide the kind of personalized strategic thinking that larger agencies seem to have forgotten. You've identified a real market opportunity. By the time I reached home, I had missed calls from 6 potential clients, 2 business journalists, and my attorney confirming that everything Belle Thompson Digital Marketing had done was completely within legal and ethical boundaries. But the most important call was the one I hadn't received yet. Tanner still had no idea that his wife had just destroyed the business he thought would secure his financial future. That conversation was going to be the most satisfying part of my entire day. At 12:30 p.m., Tanner's name appeared on my phone screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering, savoring the moment when I would control the conversation completely. Belle, what the hell did you do? Hello to you too, Tanner. Dennis called me in a complete panic. He said you rejected the job offer and somehow sabotaged Thompson and Associates client relationships. He's talking about industrial espionage and legal action. Legal action? I laughed while reviewing emails from potential new clients. Tanner, I started a legitimate consulting business using my own expertise and professional relationships. Everything I did was completely legal and ethical. You can't just steal our clients. Our clients? I paused, letting the weight of his words settle between us. Tanner, those were my clients before Dennis orchestrated my termination to steal them for your business. I simply offered them superior service at competitive rates. That's not how business works, Belle. You can't just— Can't what? Compete in a free market? Use my own strategic knowledge? Leverage relationships I spent 6 years developing? Tanner, exactly what do you think I can't do? There was silence on the other end of the line, and I could practically hear him recalculating his approach. Belle, you're obviously upset about the job offer. We can negotiate better terms. More money, senior title, partnership track. Tanner, stop talking. What? I said stop talking. You've been managing this conversation like you still have leverage, and you don't. Thompson and Associates. lost most of their clients this morning to Bell Thompson Digital Marketing. Dennis Morrison is facing potential legal action from Morrison and Associates for improper use of company resources. And you're about to discover that your wife is much more formidable than you ever imagined. Bell, what are you saying? I'm saying that I know everything. The business partnership you hid from me, the way you harvested my client database, how Dennis used information I shared to eliminate my position and steal my strategies, the systematic financial manipulation you've been conducting for months. Another pause. Longer this time. How long have you known? Since last week. Since Donna Williams at the unemployment office helped me discover your business registration with Dennis Morrison. Since I realized that my termination wasn't corporate restructuring, it was a deliberate elimination orchestrated by my own husband. Bell, I can explain. Explain what? How you spent months lying to my face while building a business designed to profit from my professional destruction? How you encouraged me to share client information so you could steal my relationships? How you plan to offer me a subordinate position implementing my own stolen strategies? It wasn't supposed to be like that. The business opportunity came up and Dennis suggested that you betray your wife for financial gain, and you agreed. Tanner, you chose money over marriage, deception over honesty, and theft over legitimate competition. What do you want, Belle? How do we fix this? The question I'd been waiting for. Tanner was finally asking what I wanted instead of telling me what I should accept. I want a divorce. I want you to sign whatever settlement terms my attorney prepares. And I want you to do it all without creating any public drama that could damage Bell Thompson Digital Marketing's reputation. And if I don't agree? Then I'll make sure everyone in Portland's business community knows exactly how Thompson and Associates was built and why it collapsed. Your real estate career depends on trust and reputation, doesn't it? Belle, please. I'll have papers drawn up this week. Clean, simple, and final. I hung up before he could respond. The man who had abandoned me at the unemployment office, thinking I was defeated, had just discovered that his wife was now the most successful marketing consultant in Portland. The transformation was complete. At 2 p.m., I sat across from Evan Hayes at Northwest Business Journal, watching him review the notes from what had become one of the most dramatic business stories in Portland's recent history. Belle, let me make sure I understand the timeline, Evan said, his pen poised over his notepad. Last Monday, you were filing for unemployment benefits. Today, you launched an independent consultancy with over $700,000 in confirmed annual revenue. That's a remarkable transformation. Sometimes the worst setbacks create the best opportunities, I replied, thinking about how different this conversation would have been if I'd accepted Tanner and Dennis's deception passively. And Thompson and Associates? I understand they're reevaluating their business model. Evan smiled at my diplomatic response. My sources suggest they lost approximately 80% of their client base this morning. Would you say that's accurate? I wouldn't know their specific numbers, but I can confirm that Bell Thompson Digital Marketing received inquiries from several companies seeking alternatives to their current marketing arrangements. Including former Thompson and Associates clients? Including companies that value personalized service, strategic innovation, and transparent business practices. My phone buzzed with a call from Morrison and Associates, and I glanced at the caller. ID, excuse me for just a moment, I told Evan, answering the call. Bell, this is Robert Morrison, Dennis's father and the founder of Morrison and Associates. Could we schedule a meeting this week to discuss a potential business relationship? Robert, Morrison himself, the man whose company had employed me for 6 years before his son orchestrated my termination. What kind of business relationship? We're exploring whether Morrison and Associates might benefit from partnering with independent consultants who can provide specialized services our corporate structure can't offer. Your name came up as someone who might be interested in that kind of arrangement. That sounds intriguing. What would the terms look like? Significant referral fees for clients who require more personalized attention than we can provide internally, plus potential collaboration on larger projects. Belle, we're talking about partnerships worth potentially millions in annual revenue. After hanging up, I returned my attention to Evan, who had clearly overheard enough to understand the significance of the call. Morrison and Associates wants to partner with you? They're interested in exploring collaborative opportunities. The same company where you were terminated 3 months ago? Business relationships evolve based on changing circumstances and market demands. What I didn't mention was that Robert Morrison was essentially offering to outsource Morrison and Associates' most valuable clients to Bell Thompson Digital Marketing, recognizing that his son's actions had created liability issues that required immediate resolution. Bell, one final question. What advice would you give to other professionals who find themselves in similar situations? I thought about Donna Williams at the unemployment office, about all the people sitting in those plastic chairs feeling defeated by circumstances beyond their control. Document everything. Trust your instincts when situations don't make sense. And remember that your skills, knowledge, and professional relationships belong to you, not to any employer or business partner who might try to exploit them. And if someone discovers they've been systematically betrayed by people they trusted, use that betrayal as motivation to build something better than what was taken from you. Sometimes the people who underestimate you give you the greatest gift possible: the opportunity to prove them wrong. The Northwest Business Journal article would run tomorrow, cementing Bell Thompson Digital Marketing's reputation as Portland's most innovative marketing consultancy. But tonight, I had one more phone call to make. 3 weeks later, I stood in the conference room of my new downtown office space, reviewing contracts that would establish Bell Thompson Digital Marketing as the premier independent consultancy in the Pacific Northwest. The view from the 20th floor overlooked the same unemployment office where this journey had begun, though that building looked much smaller now. Bell, the Morrison and Associates partnership agreement is finalized. My attorney, Margaret Williams, said as she placed the signed documents on my desk. They're referring all clients who require specialized digital marketing services to your consultancy, with guaranteed minimum revenue of $2 million annually. $2 million. More than I had earned in my entire 6 years at Morrison and Associates, combined. What about the intellectual property protections? Comprehensive. Any strategies, methodologies, or campaign frameworks you develop remain your exclusive property. Morrison and Associates receives referral fees only, with no ownership claims to your work. The irony was perfect. Robert Morrison was essentially paying me premium rates to provide the same services his son had tried to steal, but now with complete autonomy and exponentially higher compensation. My phone rang with a call from Clark Williams at Pacific Northwest Digital Solutions. Bell, I have news you're going to want to hear. Meridian Tech just signed a consulting agreement with Bell Thompson Digital Marketing for their complete digital marketing strategy overhaul. The contract is worth $300,000 annually. That's fantastic, Clark. There's more. They specifically mentioned that they chose your consultancy because of your reputation for ethical business practices and genuine expertise. Bell, companies are seeking you out not just for your skills, but because they trust you. Trust. The foundation that Tanner and Dennis had destroyed in their personal relationships was now the cornerstone of my professional success. After hanging up, I reviewed an email from Donna Williams at the unemployment office that had arrived that morning. Bell, she had written, I wanted to update you on a situation that I think you'll find satisfying. Dennis Morrison applied for unemployment benefits this week. Thompson and Associates officially dissolved after losing all their remaining clients to various competitors. He listed company closure due to competitive market forces as his reason for termination. Dennis Morrison, filing for unemployment benefits in the same office where I had discovered his betrayal. The symmetry was almost too perfect. There's something else. Donna's email continued. Dennis asked specifically if there were any job placement programs for marketing professionals. When I mentioned that some of our most successful clients had transitioned into independent consulting, he became very interested. I thought you should know that he might try to contact you about potential opportunities. I deleted the email without responding. Dennis Morrison had chosen deception over integrity, and now he was discovering that reputation was the most valuable business asset he could have protected. My assistant knocked on the office door. "Belle, there's a journalist from Forbes on line 2. They want to interview you for an article about women entrepreneurs who built successful businesses after professional setbacks." Forbes. National recognition for what had started as a response to personal betrayal and had become a demonstration of strategic excellence. "Tell them I'll be available tomorrow afternoon." As I prepared to take the call, I looked out at Portland's skyline and thought about how much had changed since that morning when Tanner had abandoned me at the unemployment office. The woman who had felt defeated by circumstances beyond her control had become someone who created the circumstances she deserved. If you're listening to this story, chances are you've experienced your own version of betrayal, professional sabotage, or systematic underestimation. Maybe someone you trusted has tried to diminish your worth, steal your contributions, or convince you that you should accept less than you deserve. I want you to know something important. Their assessment of your value says nothing about your actual capabilities and everything about their character. When Tanner abandoned me at that unemployment office, he thought he was discarding someone who had become inconvenient to his plans. What he actually did was force me to discover strengths I never knew I possessed. The woman who walked into that building feeling defeated was not the same person who walked out with a strategy to reclaim everything that had been stolen from her. Here's what I learned that I want you to understand. Betrayal reveals truth. It shows you who people really are when they think you can't fight back. It demonstrates the lengths some individuals will go to for personal gain. But most importantly, it forces you to stop making excuses for other people's behavior and start advocating for yourself with the intensity you've been giving to everyone else. Document everything. I cannot stress this enough. Screenshots, email printouts, financial records, business registrations. Evidence is power. The people who betray you are counting on your politeness, your desire to avoid conflict, and your assumption that surely no one could be that calculating. They're wrong. Some people are exactly that calculating, and your documentation will prove it when the time comes. Trust your instincts when situations don't make sense. If someone's explanation feels thin, if their behavior seems inconsistent, if you're constantly making excuses for why they're acting strangely, pay attention to that feeling. Your subconscious often recognizes patterns before your conscious mind wants to accept them. Most importantly, remember that your skills, knowledge, and relationships belong to you. Not to the company that fires you. Not to the spouse who undermines you. Not to the business partner who tries to steal your contributions. These assets are yours, and you have every right to use them to build something better than what was taken from you. The morning I was abandoned at the unemployment office, I thought my career was over. 6 months later, I'm running a multi-million-dollar consultancy, featured in national business publications, and partnering with companies that specifically seek me out because they value integrity and expertise. The people who tried to destroy my professional life inadvertently created the perfect conditions for me to build something far more successful than what I'd lost. Your betrayal might be different from mine. Your industry, your relationships, your specific circumstances, all of that will vary. But the principles remain the same. Document the truth, trust your capabilities, and use other people's underestimation of you as fuel to prove them catastrophically wrong. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best opportunity you'll ever receive. The key is recognizing that opportunity and having the courage to seize it completely. You are more formidable than you realize. The people who betray you are about to discover that truth in ways they never anticipated. Don't let them underestimate you twice. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.